lost and lazy, no good sense. Left you lying there and haven't looked back since. I'm in the market for a place where I can hang my clothes. Shiver. Steep to stumble, deep to death. Moaning mumble, struggling for breath. Flush with fodder, crazy with dream. Touch the bottom and then it starts to sink. I'm in the market for a place where I can hang my clothes. Shiver. Words are worthless, Wayne and Will. Just like everything that humans ever built. Shift to silence, stop to still. Clean your conscience and muster up the will. I'm window shopping for a place where I can hang my clothes. Shiver.
Three, four. You pick the name of a champion horse at 1.25 miles. Now you're wishing your sister could really come back home. The sun's going down and the world turning so much colder. The sun coming up and I'm smiling next to you. Well, that's a good, good, good touch that you have. Good, good, good touch that you have. Now I heard someone say that you can't write a love song when you're in it, but you showed me yours and now I'm showing you mine. There's a dance we could do, maybe crude, but it keeps us from crying. And if we're moving too fast, I hold on to you so tight. And that's a good, good, good touch that you have. Good, good, good touch that you have. Eyelids at night, strange shapes make uneasy showing. Those dreams don't reflect the light that's in your eyes. sang all or nothing. I was pushing your buttons while you ripped right through mine. Oh, that's a good, good, good touch that you have. A good, good, good touch that you have. That's such a good, good, good touch that you have. A good, good, good touch that you have. Don't lose that good touch. That's all we have.
W was once a whale.
R was once a little rose.
S was once a little fish. L was once a little lark.
R.
Don't come in this house tonight. You're arriving far too late. You've been a welcome meal. You turn away from fate. You come to reap what you did not sow. You're like a ghost out of time and space. But if this is to be my final moment, is one that I embrace. There's a man down by stuck in the middle of my street. No one sees him there but me. Don't fight against your own end, but go down quietly. You've been cursed.
And now you know one of my favorite things. That is Ramona Bareneth and Banshee from Louisville, from their Curse of the Banshee record EP. I'm looking forward to more from that. That is the title track from Curse of the Banshee. Bandshee. How did no one think of that before? It's brilliant. So let's see. This is Trivial Thursdays on WRFL. I'm your host, Mick Jeffries. Happy to be with you here on as many frequencies as possible, principally those of WRFL in Lexington, 88.1 FM on your radio digidial. And if you don't have one of those radio things, you can listen to the stream at WRFL.FM, anywhere where there is the internet. And what else? You can watch the show. You like to watch your radio? Hey, you like to watch radio? You can do that on my Facebook page, Mick Jeffries, as well as the Trivial Thursdays Facebook page. So those are places where you can check things out and be with the show. If you like to know more about what's going on, upcoming guests, that kind of thing, a good place to find out all that kind of stuff is trivialthursdays.com. I think I'll go there now. And I'm looking at the schedule, and there's some info I got to tell you. Okay. If you're a Trivial Thursdays fan, the show, we're going to take a hiatus again on this, during the summer. So, the last show is going to be May 4th, and then we're going to take a little summer break. But there's lots of great stuff coming up between now and then, including we're going to have guests like the poet LaTanya Jones, as well as the Rack House Mavericks, the environmentally helpful, is that a term? Bluegrass Green Source is going to be here. This isn't all on this show, by the way. And let's see, Tall Sound is something we'll be promoting coming up, as well as Lexington award-winning author, I believe, Chris McGinley. That stuff that's all somehow coming up before our last show on May 4th, last show for the season, if you will. And then, like I said, Trivial Thursdays is going to take a little summer hiatus and come back in the fall. What can I tell you about today, though? Today we have a great show today. I'm excited and even maybe a little nervous for today's show. You may say, Mick, why are you nervous? And it's because, we're doing some memorializing here. In a little bit, we've got quite a group of some of my favorite people. And we're going to be talking about the legendary Bob Andrews. That's coming up here in just a few minutes. Bob, the one of the proprietors of the Paisley Peacock, as well as a man who probably cooked you a meal, I would say, among other things. So, and then later on in the show, Ben Sali is going to be here. I'm very, very fond of Ben, the music he makes, I like the cut of his jib. The guy's he's just great, up and down, across and all around. So Ben is debuting at the Big Ears Festival, Big Ears in Knoxville, Tennessee, which kicks off today. And Ben will be playing there. And we're going to talk. So we're going to talk to him some about that, as well as his percussionist, Jordan Ellis, who was lost quite tragically recently. So it's there's some, we're gonna celebrate some wonderful people who are not with us anymore, and we're gonna celebrate those people by celebrating with people who are with us. So that's coming up. And in the meantime, I want to play a little tune for you, I think, here. And that is, what do we got? Something new, right? Because there's so much great music coming out of Lexington right now. We've got something by, let's see, what are we going to do here? The Sympathy Jar is that what we're going to play? Yeah, we'll play the Sympathy Jar. This is Flee Like These Words. Or excuse me, the EP is called Flee Like These Words. And the track by the Sympathy Jar is Longing is the track. So stick around. This is Trivial Thursdays. We will be back and look forward to the show. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Sympathy Jar.
This portion of WRFL's programming is made possible in part by Street Scene Vintage. Street Scene offers a retro environment and a variety of housewares, furniture, clothing, and accessories. Street Scene is located at 2575 Regency Road. For more information, you can visit streetscenevintage.com or call 859-260-1578. WRFL thanks Street Scene Vintage for supporting college radio.
The Rifle is WRFL's long-running zine publication that predates the station's first FM radio broadcast in 1988. Printed triannually, The Rifle regularly includes articles, reviews, writing, comics, photography, art, and more from Lexington community members and RFLians. Just like WRFL's on-air content, The Rifle is constantly changing. Physical copies of The Rifle can be found at various underwriter locations across Lexington or outside of the WRFL doors in the UK Student Center. A digital archive of the rifle dating back to 1987 can be found at wrfl.fm/RIFLE.
Yes, indeed, it's true. This is Trivial Thursdays on WRFL, and I'm happy to be with you. I'm your host, Mick Jeffries, and we are here on this, what is this, like March 30th? That's right. And we've got just a whole bunch of people here to join us. I did think that one thing that occurred to me was Rifle Comics, which gets distributed somewhat confusingly through a variety of underwriters and WRFL friends and whatnot. And I think Paisley Peacock may have been one of those places where you could get Rifle. Is that true, Casey Kerrigan?
Yes, it was. Good morning, Mick. How are you?
And by the way, hi, Casey Kerrigan.
Hi, good to see you.
Among it, I just want to say, I'm sorry, I want to say hi to everybody, but Casey, it's been so long that you seemed like a mythical character almost. It's been a little bit.
I know. We used to be neighbors.
Indeed, with so many connections that you maybe have even forgotten some, or perhaps I have. The dark room we shared, being neighbors.
Yes.
Remember that dark room?
Yeah, we just walked past that last night. Curtis and I did, and we're reminiscing about it because he had a studio there as well in that same building.
And Curtis Grace is here. Hello, Curtis.
Hey, how are you?
Nice to see you.
Good to see
Yeah.
you.
I
Were
think we've had
neighbors as well.
I know it's true.
Yeah,
And I don't know if we.
fancy.
I am, but
Cool.
don't tell anyone who's listening, okay? So
That's where Mick can be stalked.
that's right. Yeah, I wonder if we had if we were. I remember being in that building. We've talked about that building many times on the show, by the way. It's such a strange and storied building with so
Cool
many
building. Very cool building.
tenants and whatnot.
Earliest one downtown, I believe.
Pardon me?
It's the earliest building downtown, I believe. It's like
I had no idea.
late 1700s, maybe.
Wow. And how much of that time did Patrick McNeese live there?
No idea.
200 years.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing. So let's see. I want to introduce everybody else. Lauren Hunter Smith is here. Hi, Lauren.
Hi, good morning.
Thanks to have you on the show. I think I just messed up two colloquialisms. I think I just said thanks to have you on the show. Pat Gerhardt is here. Pat, hi.
Hello.
Hi,
I'm so glad to
Pat.
see you.
This is so wonderful. I love it.
I'm so glad that you feel that way.
People.
I know. And then over here's
Yes,
Carla
you.
Brown. Carla Brown is here too.
Hi,
Wow.
Hello.
Carla Brown.
it's
Downtown
so good to see everybody on here.
Everybody, I've wanted all these people on my show. Curtis, I think, is the only one that's been on the show several times.
Yes.
Lauren, have you been on the show before? I can't remember.
Haven't.
Okay. Well, we'll do another show for your death doula stuff sometime
That's good.
if you're interested in that. Speaking of death,
Nice.
like that. Yeah, nice.
segue,
It's
Pat.
good. Smooth.
Delicate, yeah.
Smooth. We share we along with many people share a friend in common, and that was Robert Andrews, Bob Andrews. Let's see, the capacities in which people knew Bob are myriad. Maybe somebody wants to. Casey, I know that you and Bob were in business with the Paisley Peacock.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe we want to reach back to that time a little bit. I was thinking earlier before we went on the air that I was thinking how you and Bob were this almost these. Yeah, you had this almost kind of parental quality for a variety of somewhat
Which
younger.
I didn't have.
I like
Curtis,
that.
maybe not. But yeah, there was something about, I don't know. It was almost like Paisley Peacock served multiple purposes, and one of them seemed to be kind of like a home for wayward punk children.
That's true. That's very true. There were a lot of little
think?
punk rockers around at the time, and we took them all in and dressed them all up and loved them all. And hopefully we'll get to see some of them this evening. But yeah, we started the shop in, I guess it was 1988 down on Church Street, right around the corner from where A La Lucy used to be. I can't remember. Oh wait, the name of that restaurant now was
Minglewood.
Mingle, right around the corner from where Minglewood
Yes.
is now. And we stayed on that
I don't know what
location,
you're laughing about. That's a Grateful Dead reference. Okay. What do you got a problem with the Grateful
Is
Dead?
Is that a Grateful Dead reference? We couldn't figure it out.
It is.
Um,
You're showing, and you're
I-
showing your stripes by not figuring it out. You're showing your stripes, your punk rock
I know.
stripes.
That's true. That's true.
Continue.
So then we moved up to Limestone underneath Special Media fairly quickly. And that was where the shop was, that location was best known. And that was right when WRFL was starting, when everybody was working to get that off the ground. And yeah, I'm sure that we were early sponsors of it and carried the rifle there out in the common area where all of the printed materials were, and Bears Wax was downstairs. And yeah.
Casey, it may have been a while, but they can't seem to keep vinyl records out of the basement there in the Special building. No matter what you do, it's Sammy Ibrahim for a long time, a WRFL DJ, but it's almost as if the records have to stay, and I swear it's the making of some sort of gothic horror novel, and they go out and they find a new host who then comes to the basement and cannot leave.
Yeah.
Well,
it'll always smell like vinyl, even if it's not there.
And they don't want to carry him back up the stairs.
Exactly.
So they probably just live down there and somebody else takes over.
Hey, I forgot Carla, did I introduce you? Carla
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted to
Thank
double
you.
check. Because like I said, there's several people on the show who've never been on the show before. I don't want to.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. Now, Carla, you and Bob, to say everybody goes way back with Bob is probably sort of true, right?
Oh, man.
What is
Well,
what is? Go ahead.
I would say my introduction to Bob was at a very young age, and for a couple years, I probably didn't speak to the man because I was such a shy young girl. And I remember when Paisley was on Church Street, and I was too shy to even go into that store, but I admired it from afar. And then, and of course, I had older friends that were going in there and getting lots of cool duds. But then when it moved up to Limestone, which we referred to lovingly then as Slimestone, all us little punk rock kids and hippie kids and alternative kids, I ended up working for Bob a couple different times in my teenage years. I think maybe, let's see, I moved out on my own when I was about 15 years old. So probably 15, 16, 17, 18, a couple times in there. And worked for him as a bead girl in the bead room in the way back of the shop, which was perfect for someone like myself, a little introverted, but interested in all that was going on. I could sit back there and make beaded necklaces by myself and have my space and get to see all that was going on in Lexington. And at that time, I think it was around, it was the same time when Triangle Park back then, all the young kids would come together and were it's a communal place. And there was no, everybody was just together. Nobody was at each other. There were no groups at each other. Like I said, you had the punk kids, the skateboarders, the hippie kids, the jocks, the preppy kids. Everybody came down there, and we were young and finding ourselves, and it was a great hangout. And with that, Paisley Peacock being up on Limestone, we would saunter up there, and on any given day, you would find all different groups of people hanging out together in front of the shop, spare changing, smoking cigarettes, being bad or not. And so that was my main introduction with Bob there, and working for him was fantastic and definitely shaped me. And I know a lot of other people in many various ways. We were allowed to kind of find ourselves in that hard time, preteen, teen times, and feel welcomed, and like there was nothing wrong with us for being different. And I just want to say my one story. I know everybody needs to talk, but I have to go to work in just a second. But I do want to get this story out because I remember this story often. And sorry, it's probably going to make me cry. But people have so many stories about Bob, and some people thought he could be a little harsh sometimes. And
no, Carla,
sometimes,
no.
That's not a thought. That's just true.
I will never forget being like 16 years old and living above Two Keys Tavern, and like I was working for him, and just trying to do everything on my own, which was really hard at that time, trying to still go to school and all these things. And there was a period where I just did not have food to eat for a while, and so I would go down to Tally Ho, which was on the corner there of Euclid and Limestone, and get the cheapest thing that they had on the menu that I could afford, which was their vegetable sandwich, which is like, bagged shredded lettuce and a sliced tomato from who knows where. And the bottomless cup of coffee with a squirt of chocolate syrup in there, for those extra calories, more, the most bang for your buck. And I would eat that all the time. That's what I could afford. And he knew of that. And of course, he was always the great cook. And several times he would, without making it a big deal or getting too much in the conversation about it or making it embarrassing for me or anything like that, he would bring up to my apartment sacks of potatoes and glorious gallons of his homemade gazpacho. And at that time I had never had gazpacho before, so I felt very exotic and honored to be eating that. And believe me, I put it on anything and everything. But he definitely kept me from starving for a while, and not just having to live on veggie sandwiches from Tally Ho. So I will never forget that. I will never, ever forget that. He was a very giving person in so many ways, and he had a way of doing it often that, especially for a young person, did not make it too uncomfortable or a big deal or embarrassing. He just gave. And I don't know, it's always memorable to me. And I always remember that, to be grateful for so much.
That's Carla Brown. Hey, I want to stick on a point that you have there, because I think some other people might have something to say about it, which is, I was mentioning earlier about just like the kind of, I don't know, like I said, punk rock babysitting. I'm sort of kidding, but not really. But Bob, like you just said that he had a way of talking to young people.
Yes.
Relative to his age.
Yes.
In such a way that they wouldn't tune him out.
Exactly. They wouldn't tune him out. And I mean, he would, and he wasn't just stroking egos or, telling you what you wanted to hear. He was straight up, which I totally appreciated. And he would call people out on their, almost cussed on the show, on their stuff. But, it felt like a safe place to, and a gentle, even though he could come across as harsh to so many, for me, and I know so many others, it felt like a safe, gentle, nurturing, supportive place to go talk to, just be. And I have to say too, my love for music, all kinds of music, really came from that man, and that is saying a lot. David Bowie, he turned me on to David Bowie. I mean, come on. But the emotional thing, like sitting in the backbeat room, and somebody else mentioned this, a story similar to this. I would sit back there and just be going through my teenage angst BS, and he just always knew the right music to play in the front room, whether I was sad or happy or whatever emotion, and it was just always the right thing. And we could just be still and quiet and listen to these songs, him in the front room at the counter and me in the back room. And it's almost like we were bonding through that in two separate spots, but yet in this space that he created, that was his shop, that was welcoming to so many. It was great for I'm grateful for that in my upbringing, part of my upbringing there.
Hey,
you guys go ahead. I'm just going to stand over here on the side.
I'd just like to make a comment about that. Carla, I don't remember you, and you probably don't remember me.
I remember you.
You do?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay. Uh-oh.
No, good.
But
awkward.
When I was there, I worked the morning shift and I worked in the back room. So I was the bookkeeper and I paid the taxes, and I like looked at the orders and balanced the books and all that kind of invisible stuff. And I worked in the morning, and people would come in, they would walk into the shop and say, "Is Bob here?" "No, not yet. He doesn't come in until such and such a time." "Oh, okay." And then they would just turn around and leave. So it's like he had that magnetism and that pull, that way about him, like Carla was saying. He just had this way about him that attracted people to him, even when he was insulting people.
Yes.
They were still attracted to him. It was an amazing quality, and I certainly
didn't forget him.
They never forgot him, and I certainly did not have that quality, you know. And so I just think that's wonderful.
Well, I remember you, Casey, because it was more in the days of when I was kind of looking into when the shop was on Church. So I was looking from afar into, and I knew that you all had the shop together, and I thought it was so cool, of course, and didn't really get to meet you and know you, but I knew of you that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I think that, yeah, Bob was the memorable character in our in our partnership.
Casey, when you got into business with Bob, I mean, not to sound snide, but what did you expect?
Well, we were just, you know, we were both very creative. I was in my early 20s. He was in his mid 20s. And we were friends, we were roommates, and we wanted to go into business together. And we just had an idea of the kind of stuff we wanted to sell. And we would go through in our minds, we're like, yeah, we want to sell beads, and we want to sell Doc Martens, and we want to sell punk rock clothing, we want to sell leather jackets. And so I knew that he would be the charismatic front man, and really we were a really good partnership in that. But part of my job was to keep Bob in check, and that was a very difficult part of the job, was to try and rein him in. And I didn't expect, you know, you don't know what a partnership's going to be like until you're in it.
I want to say that one of the things that I noticed was that around those times, I don't even know if I'm younger than you all or not. I feel like we're about the same age, but I know Bob was a little bit older, but I remember being just kind of in awe of these people who were sort of close to my age who had opened a business. I don't know why, but it just seemed like so beyond what I could do. I couldn't imagine opening a business and having a business and selling stuff and being there all the time.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were doing. We just did it. We managed to get $3,000 together, and that's what we started the shop with. And we had to pay $2,000 of that back, which we did. And yeah, we just tried to do it. We had our early employees. I feel so badly for our early employees because we didn't know how to pay people. We didn't know anything about, you know, pay scale or benefits or anything like that, you know. Finally, my friend Carla had to write us, when she had her first child, she had to write us a very nice resignation letter about how she had to move on, you know. And people love working there, but it certainly wasn't going to make you rich, you know. We just didn't know.
But that was the times too.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like that then.
Now, I feel like, I'm sorry, go ahead, Curtis.
It was just like that then. You didn't look for it. You know, you weren't necessarily looking for benefits or retirement or that didn't enter your mind in those days, I don't think, as much as now. Maybe it's because I want to take age now. But,
I was gonna say, I don't know.
I've known Bob, I figure, 42 years. So
yeah.
We met. He was doing lights at LMNOP when we met, and he used to work for me, so it was kind of a reverse situation. And we traveled together.
Cafe LMNOP you mentioned, which was I don't know, in many ways I feel like, you know, a lot of what we're talking about Bob, talking about Paisley Peacock, talking about, you know, different groups of people coming together. Carla was talking about that, and a lot of that really goes back to Cafe LMNOP, Bradley Picklesheimer's place, and I just feel like some of the outgrowth of this sort of weirdo benevolence. I'm just making that term up, but like all the kooks, you know, the kooky people that just slip through the cracks. I feel like there's also a strain of Lexingtonian that wants to help those people without judging them. And I would put Bob Andrews right square in the middle of that.
When I tell my new friends in Paducah about Bob, I call him the freak Jesus.
Oh my God, that's the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Which is very fitting because a lot of people don't know, but Bob originally came from upstate New York to Lexington to attend Asbury Theological Seminary.
Wow. No, I did not know that. Wow.
He was a seminary school dropout.
Yeah.
Either I didn't know that or I'd blocked it from my mind. I'm not sure which. Hey,
So
Teresa
we
Toom is here. We weren't sure if Teresa was going to make it or not. I want to say hi to Teresa just real quick, just to say, hey, come on in. I'm sorry, Curtis, you were saying?
We went to, we used to travel a little together, and he would come to my house. He'd say, how about I come over for the weekend? I'm like, sure. You know, we watched movies, and my father was a pretty renowned chef, but I never had food. He'd come to my house, open the refrigerator, and make me like meals for a week out of nothing, out of literally nothing that I would have not even tried. But so one time we went to Atlanta to the Merchandise Mart together, and it was just a phenomenal experience. You know, it's kind of Tony. Mart's a little Tony, all these showrooms, 2 buildings, I don't know, 11, 12, 14 floors of showrooms.
This is where, like, I've gotten a clearer sense of this because of some friends. This is where you go. This is where stores go to buy stuff for their stores
2 or 3 times a year. And, or the whole thing is, and everybody's got food laid out. Well, honey, we go into a showroom and the crowds would part. And we would be right first. It didn't matter how many people were in there, who was taking order, who had an order. They would take our order immediately. So we're in this one.
Now, why? You got to give a why on that, Curtis.
Why?
In your words, I know why.
And you know, so we're in this one showroom, and this guy's taking, you know, waiting on us, and he goes, "Come here, come back here." So he takes us back to the little workroom, opens his shirt, and shows us his scarifications. It was just.
This is why I do this show.
Yeah, Bob became progressively more colorful as time went on. He became progressively more decorative and more colorful as time went on. And he charged. Bob was like, he was charging everywhere. He charged around town. He walked everywhere with a pack on his back.
Yeah, and a dog a lot of times.
Yeah, I mean, he would just have this tremendous energy and this tremendous presence. And yeah, I can totally see the sea parting.
And he had that grace about it. He was a large guy, but he was very light on his feet.
Yeah.
You know, he loved to dance. He loved to skate.
Yeah, Curtis talked about.
Great to watch him skate.
Yeah, roller skating.
Backwards and on one foot. Had this little big boy wig glued to the front of his head.
There he is.
Wait, let me get that back. There we go.
There he is.
Yeah.
Meg, I'm gonna have to say goodbye. I'm sorry, I gotta run.
That's okay. I'm glad we got you in there. Before that's Carla Brown. Carla, thanks for visiting with us. I want to make sure. Thank you. And I want to check in with Pat and with everybody. Really, let me know if you've got to go like real soon, and we'll sort of get you in because we've got this very carefully programmed, as you can tell.
Love you guys. See you later.
Bye, Carla. Let's see. So yeah. You mentioned, I had forgotten because like Bob he was a sizable guy, but like you said, he could like roll with force. He always, you would see him blocks away. You could see him coming. And yeah. And so I can imagine that now that you describe it that way, Curtis, at the Merchandise Mart.
Right. And when people would call him out, which I think happened more then than it does today, people would just call you out if you look different, or you know, they call you a fag or freak or whatever. He would go, "Yeah, I'm not getting that hairdo you're wearing either."
You come right back with it.
Back.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you didn't want to. I didn't want to like cross swords with Bob. He was, yeah.
Yeah, but yet I never saw Bob get violent. I never saw him.
Yeah, one time he sat on somebody that
He sat on
that
somebody.
was stealing from him. He
Oh, yeah.
sat on him till the police arrived. Yeah.
Was that a Paisley Peacock?
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
We took a hands-on approach with shoplifting.
Hey, Teresa, you look fabulous.
I'm wearing some of Bob's creations.
Yay!
Little happy face earrings and
Wonderful.
3-dimensional pin.
Lovely.
Now, Teresa, this is a whole nother aspect, because one of the things that I want to make sure that we're clear about for people who didn't know Bob Andrews was, some of the many sort of myriad ways in which he sort of contributed to the world. Teresa, you and Bob worked together creatively for many years. He would be a force in the incredible productions that Mecca would make, shows, that kind of thing. Do you want to talk some about what was it like to work with Bob creatively in that way?
Well, Bob is a man with a million ideas and he's a wordsmith. Just look the bet, like Paisley Peacock, Retail Hell, Recyclopath, like all those titles for things were always so brilliant. And he would always come up to me and be like, Teresa, I had this idea. I saw this dance that I think you need to do. And he'd have this whole picture choreographed out of these ideas that he could see me and the dance troupe doing. He stage managed a lot of our shows. He would sit in rehearsals and take notes, and I'm more of a soft-spoken, quieter person. And so he was kind of like my Luther anger management person. Like he would sit back and whip everybody into shape and places, everyone, la, 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 and he would also be backstage, fixing costumes. And, when we first did Thriller, he was our main zombie patrol guy who kept with our crowd control for a long time until we had more production help, years later. But so Bob, and he, when I had,
can I ask you, let me ask you about, you mentioned all these things just come out. You're like, oh my God, that's right. But one of them was, you mentioned the crowd control of the early days of the Thriller event, which just grew quickly into an unmanageable situation where people were so excited on the sidewalks as the Thriller parade comes down Main Street that they would just pour onto the streets. And you all realized, if I'm summarizing correctly, I hope, that, this is a problem. and so the thing with the rope, was that a Bob Andrews idea? I'm just curious.
It was a Bob Andrews idea, probably. And I was
Pat Gerhardt.
I was in what? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I was in one of those early rope holding. I guess the earliest one. We did it for just a couple years because it was impossible. There was so many people there so early.
Yeah,
and we would try to hold them back on the sidewalk so the dancers could dance and.
Yeah, it was for Halloween.
It was overwhelming.
We have to describe it a little bit because it was like a picture, like one of those ropes that personal trainers make you whip your arms with, but I can't really remember.
The ropes were thick and they were attached to the arm.
Were they orange?
Yeah, they were attached to the soundtrack.
To the bumper of the truck from RFL that had the big speakers, and we would,
because that's where the soundtrack would come from.
Yep, one truck, speakers, and you see what it is now. It's huge now.
Yeah.
It's got multiple stations and
But the idea with that rope, I don't know why, I just have to come back to it. So there would be people, Pat, you were one of them. I don't know if anybody else was. And you all would sort of be on the inside, if you will, of this giant rope loop. And then your job was to just sort of press it into people to keep them off the street, right?
And the people were crazy. They didn't care if we were there or not. And so that rope, that was only 2 or 3 years. And soon Lexington police got involved because the crowd was overwhelming. And now it's totally orchestrated cleanly with, I don't know, police department in Lexington and
Yeah, we've got the Parks and Rec, once they partner with us, we have the infrastructure, but yeah, those early days, it was very DIY.
yeah, yeah.
So,
We're used to.
yeah.
Pat, you also, I feel like you all kind of had, you know, I don't know, you could maybe call them sibling stores, sort of, but certainly in the geography of right there near the
Right.
corner of like Euclid and Limestone.
Yeah.
You know, you
I
had,
3rd Street stuff was just 2 doors down from Paisley Peacock. And I'm not really sure. I also, like Carla, I'm a little retiring, or I don't jump into situations, but I was just in awe of Bob. Oh my gosh. I was just so in awe, and everything in that store. He probably knew how much I wanted to be that. I wasn't that, but it's not that he made me that. It's just that that's what I wanted to be. And he knew it, and he would save things for me, like Emily the Strange t-shirts and striped tights. And I think he introduced me to Doc Martens. I feel like he kind of, sort of made me.
that's amazing to say, Pat, because I would think that Bob was partially in awe of you. I would think that anybody would be.
I agree.
Oh, no, I
agree.
was, and he's my Bobby A. I've called him Bobby A. I called him Bobby A for 40 years or something.
And you were his Patty G.
I just absolutely honor and respect that person. He was just everything, and so generous.
Yes.
And he's so creative on so many levels. Just, he could do so many things, and he was always doing so many things. And it just kind of, you sit back and watch. He's doing a stage performance, or he's making costumes, or one time he took me with him to the bar to paint bodies under black light with fluorescent paint.
I remember that.
Or latex too.
Yeah. This was quite a experience for me. And I had a blast, and then we could hardly get out of there. Everybody wanted their bodies painted. Clothes came off. It was an amazing night.
That's Pat Gerhard of 3rd Street Stuff. And do you guys, I'm going to take a short little break here. I barely want to. I'm going to make it as short as possible so we can come back and talk some more about Bob Andrews and get Lauren Hunter Smith into the mix. And also there's an event tonight, right? That's open to the public. Do you guys want to mention the details of that before we take a break?
Yeah, it's at the Lyric Theater. It's Bob's Potluck Prom Memorial. And we've got Lee J. Bryant is DJing for us, and we're going to have a lot of food and some nice memorial souvenirs. And Becca's going to close the show, and Pat's made some fabulous buttons, and it's going to be a fun time. I think we're hoping for a good crowd.
Yeah, we're going to share memories of Bob, and
we're going to share memories. Some of his family will be here from Rochester, New York. People coming from New Jersey. So it's going to be a cool show.
Yeah, we're trying to do him proud.
Excellent. Well, we're doing that already. So this is Trivia Thursdays. Let's take a quick little break, and we're going to come back and visit some more and remember and celebrate Bob Andrews. Stick around. There's more to come. Here's a little something from the Blueberries. We'll be back Trivia Thursdays on WRFL.
Now it's the right thing to do. Recalling bedtimes, bless my dreams with you. Lightly drifting to tomorrow's light, I met a girl who could surely change my life. drive a car that works, my rent's always paid. My fridge is full and the house is clean by May. There you are, so pretty and clean, a loving smile and a baby on your knee. And I go dream on, 'cause Charlotte changed my dream on, 'cause Charlotte changed my. And I go dream on, 'cause Charlotte changed my dream on, 'cause Charlotte changed my life.
WRFL's programming is made possible in part by County Club Restaurant, located at 555 Jefferson Street. County Club offers a selection of house-smoked meats, pickles, pastries, salads, and sides. More information can be found at countyclubrestaurant.com or by calling 859-367-0263. WRFL thanks County Club Restaurant for supporting college radio.
Yes, indeed we do. This is Trivial Thursdays on WRFL. I'm your host, Mick Jeffries. Happy to be with you here every Thursday, at least for a little while longer. And then we're gonna take a little Trivial Thursdays summer disco nap, okay? And then we'll be back in the fall. So in the meantime, I am here with some of my favorite people, some of whom I haven't seen in such a long time. Casey Kerrigan, Curtis Grace, Teresa Toom is here, Lauren Hunter-Smith, and Pat Gerhart of Third Street Stuff. And I'm so happy to have you all here. The occasion is somewhat sad, but the celebrating is real because of the many facets of Bob Andrews. And what I love so much about this is so many people have their Bob story. Everybody's got at least one, and lots of people have lots of them, right?
Yes.
Yep.
I want to share mine before I forget because it's, it touches on some of the things that other people have touched on, including the sort of the kind of space that you would tend to give Bob's imposing presence. Kind of like, I knew him for years, but like he was very articulate and also extremely forceful with his opinions while not necessarily getting angry. And someone mentioned that they never saw Bob get really mad at anybody, which I agree. I mean, I'm sure some of them probably did, but So, I consider myself to be a foremost expert on the music of Brian Eno, and was so delighted one time when I found myself on the steps out in front of the Sketchel building talking to Bob about Brian Eno, and the topic of music for airports came up, which is also called Ambient One, and it's been my sort of like sleep drug for so many years. And Bob was familiar with it, which made me happy because not everybody is familiar with it. And Bob was like, so I'm like, oh my God, music for airports. He's like, yeah, it's so amazing. And what's the most amazing thing is that it's just row your boat. I mean, it's hard to believe that I'm like, the nursery rhyme? And he's like, well, yeah. But he said it in such a way that, like, I'm not going to argue with him. I'm like, how is it row, row, row your boat? But Bob Andrews could say it in such a way that you're like, well, I guess it's row, row, row your boat. I didn't realize that. And I got to tell you, even to this day, I still listen to music for airports trying to hear row, row, row your boat in there.
That's funny because when we met, it was over the Giorgio Moroder soundtrack from Cat People. And he loaned me the vinyl, and I never gave it back to him. I just played it 24 hours a day.
Let's see, Lauren Hunter Smith is here too, among other friends and acquaintances and colleagues and so forth and so on of Bob Andrews. Lauren, it's great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I just kind of wanted to take the time to really commend Casey and Curtis for doing such an awesome job and recognizing that there is a huge community who needs to have this opportunity to grieve our friend. I'm one of the little Cretan weirdos. I started with my allowance at Pat's, and I'd buy my little string of lights with all the different things on it. And then I'd see Bob. And I think because I went to a small Catholic school and was sort of the notorious weirdo there, that Bob recognized that in me to a certain level. And he really would just kind of lay out the truth for you and be like this is just while you're in school. It's going to be different as soon as you are in a larger community. And Bob was maybe one of the first adults who had ever been like, it's not all beige and khaki. Like once you get out of here, your life's going to be very, very different. And I'm lucky in that every milestone in my life, for some reason, Bob was always there. Like he's the last person I hugged before I left for college. He's the last person I hugged at 2:00 in the morning in Disco Kroger before I left for Peace Corps. Right before I walked down the aisle, Bob's who wiped me all the sweat off me. Had held ice cubes under my eyes. He was just a person who I think could really recognize people who maybe needed a certain kind of word of encouragement that couldn't come from just anywhere. And he knew he could do that. And he was just an amazing force. And I feel really lucky that we got to know him, but also that we get to have this time tonight at the Lyric Theater at 6:30 to celebrate him and be together and really participate in that. And just the death doula in me says that's really important. It doesn't always happen. And, congratulations to you guys for doing such an awesome job. Really excited for tonight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Curtis and I threw ourselves into this a couple days. Bob passed away on February 13th. And
right before his birthday.
Right before what would have been his 63rd birthday. And we gave ourselves a couple of days and then threw ourselves into the planning of this, because one of the last things that Bob said to me, I saw him about 2 weeks before he died, and we talked about what he wanted. And he said that he wanted to be cremated. And Bob didn't have any end of life plans, as so many people don't. But fortunately, Bob was very well loved. And we were able to fundraise, and part of that fundraising went to pay for cremation expenses. And after he said he wanted to be cremated, I said, well, then what? And he said, have a party. So a couple of days after he died, we began throwing ourselves into the planning of this event. And with all of the contributions, and tonight's it's a potluck.
And long distance too.
Long distance, we've been doing this. And I think that it's kind of helped to distract us from our grief over losing this dear old friend. And probably tonight it will creep up on us, but that's appropriate. That's what this is for. So it's both to celebrate and to remember. And we're very happy to be able to do this for our friend.
Absolutely.
Bob and I both worked on Lauren's fabulous circus wedding, I have to say, with sword swallowers and flamethrowers, and
it's the only way to do it.
Wonderful. I remember we were doing all these balloons that went way up into the rafters, and Bob goes, "Where's the cake?" Well, it was right there. Do you remember that? And it
we lost part of the cake. I think it was too hot. It was too hot for cake.
It was too hot for cake.
Wait, your wedding cake disappeared?
Together, he had little green jewels under it that were things that only I could see, but I don't think just anybody would think about that. You know, like it was the bride, it was my day, and I had special little things that were
Yeah.
just for me. And that was just something really sweet and touching.
Yeah,
That
it was a sweet wedding.
it was. And Bob was a big
Hey,
part of it.
once again, I just want to back up a tiny bit because you pointed out something there, Lauren, that I think is that I found to be true too, which was that impossibly somehow it wasn't just that Bob necessarily supported this like almost a whole demographic of people, but also he had this incredible superpower of making kind of every single person feel special. It wasn't like, oh wait, what's your name, punk rocker Z? I can't remember. And talk about a value. Talk about a value for people at that age and at that time to have.
It's funny because
wasn't their parents.
I'm sorry. Bob used to. I'm introverted as well. I call myself an extroverted introvert, but he used to introduce me and say I was his best friend. And it would embarrass me until I realized that he had a lot of best friends.
But he remembered everybody. Mick, you're absolutely right. He remembered everybody's name. He could not see you for 20 years and you'd pass him on the street and he'd be like, hey, Jeff or whoever it was, he would always remember you. And Curtis was just saying, who am I going to ask now? When I need to
what's
remember
this person's name, or remember this when we did this, or
and Bob would know.
And he would know.
Yeah.
He would. And the other thing was his demographic was so encompassing. It was like drug addicts to street kids to punk kids to rich, very wealthy to horse people to church people to grandparents it was amazing. So you were always entertained, when you would be in his presence, and so you'd go, okay, how do you know this guy, or or whatever, and it was like always entertaining. And it made me
so this is something I keep meaning to do, but I'm going to do it now finally, which is there's, people watch the show on Facebook Live, and John Lackey commented, he said, the artist and writer and musician John Lackey.
We were talking about him earlier.
Bob taught me to screen print, catered our wedding, was sweet to my kids, and sold my wife's early sewn creations in
cut my hair, used to cut my hair.
It's crazy.
Change my piercing.
Gave me piercings.
I mean, he was such a Renaissance person. He could just do everything and do it all well and effortlessly. Like, where did you learn this
tenderly? When Bob took care of you, felt taken care of.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, he gave more to everyone else than he gave himself.
One thing that several people have mentioned too is that and this is something this is such a treasure in a friend. On the one hand, you want friends who will listen to you no matter what. On the other hand, you want friends who will call you on your BS. And Bob Andrews, man, he was almost merciless at it in some ways, right? He was not going to give you a free pass if what you were saying to him was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, true, very true.
And again, there's a lot of people at that age where, I think you've got people who are probably not in the best relationship with their parents at that point. And then if they find another sort of parental figure, the best one from their perspective would be one who lets them do anything they want to. And again, Bob didn't necessarily make people do this or that, but he wasn't going to tell you. He was going to tell you if the thing that you were talking about doing was a terrible idea.
Yeah, and that was kind of like part of what was so inspirational about Bob, is you trusted what he said, but he also was emblazoned enough to say it. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up this McDonald's poisons bird sign.
Yes.
Which, when I was a kid, I went to a small Catholic school, and that kind of outburst was just like not tolerated. And if you did it to a McDonald's, that just I remember being very uncomfortable looking at that sign. Oh my God, you can do that? It's crazy. But, it's the thing I remember, and it's one of the things I loved about Paisley Peacock. I hope that sign is still in that building somewhere.
Let's see. This is Trivial Thursdays on WRFL Lexington. It's a little bit after 11, and we are visiting with some close friends of Bob Andrews, celebrating the life of Bob Andrews. And also around the corner is we're going to visit with Ben Salih. And Ben, who I'm putting on the spot at this very moment, also has his own Bob story. So I'm going to Ben should pop in here if he wants to. He's welcome to.
Ben worked for me when he was in high school.
Yes, this is coming full circle now.
I don't know if y'all can hear me.
We go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah, that's Ben Salih.
Do you want some video action too?
Sure, I'll get you on here. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, Ben Salih is here. Oh,
All right.
There we go. Wow, he just like appeared. That was really crazy.
Yeah, I'm an appearance. Hi, Curtis.
Hi, Ben.
Oh my gosh, it's so good to see your handsome face. Yeah, I am.
Likewise.
Although many years ago, I used to haunt around Paisley Peacock, and Bob took an interest into me, kind of guiding me as a young artist, and always encouraging me to go for the weird side of things, which was really great to have in my life. And then when I started working in flowers, I worked for, Berthold and Grigsby nominally, but I bounced around working for everybody, including Curtis, in my high school days. And we would do events. I remember building a big event with Curtis and Bob at Rupp Arena for Toyota one time. And, I think as an analogy for all of us, I got up on the big A-frame ladders, the suicide ladders, to bend down the rebar and hang the flowers. And Bob was there holding the ladder, which I think is a wonderful allegory, right, for so many of us that knew him. He was there holding the ladder, and he's like, "You can go do that crazy thing." And I appreciate that. He was a good spirit in my life. I have fond memories of him.
That's Ben Salih. I can't help but mention that it all seems so timely, like this is Bob Andrews. It seemed like such a great example of the very thing that I feel like we're fighting so hard to keep, which is people to support people who maybe aren't like you. And Bob Andrews was someone who would support you even if you weren't like him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, with that idea of this being like a time of that sort of waves coming ashore, I think we're still dealing with a lot of ripples from the pandemic. Certainly we've not made a lot of space in public conversations and dialogue to just grieve and hold space for memories, but also a lot of things that, people that kind of got diverted on different highways of life or got into bad habits or whatever, like those waves are now coming ashore because they never got reintegrated back in. So much changed. And a lot of people taking the exit ramp right now, and that's tough. It's tough to live through, and I'm sure it's tough to leave through as well.
That's Ben Salih. Go ahead.
If we're winding down a little bit, I'm just so glad to get to oh dear. Sorry. Bobby was just everything. And I appreciate that he was in our world.
Us too, Pat. Us too.
Yeah, the words Renaissance man are just truly, if anybody was well-rounded, it was him. He could do everything, and he was so important in so many, I feel like our whole community coming up and coming of age, so to speak, because I don't know if I would have done what I was doing if I didn't feel like that welcomeness and that it's okay for you to think of these weird ideas and make them come to life.
Yeah, and turn them into reality.
Yeah. And he gave everybody a lot of permission.
Yeah. And it was a much more hands-on time. It was right before the advent of the internet, and Bob even said with confidence one time, internet's just a fad. It's just a fad, of course. So
he was right. Once again, he was right. It's incredible.
Exactly. It's just a fad. And then of course
it could still be a fad.
Yeah, it's just a fad. But it was, it was just such a hands-on time when you had to show up in person and you had to do things and make things for yourself. And there was no virtual world. And I think that that's a really important aspect of that time, was showing up. And that's what we're trying to do today and tonight, is to show up for Bob. And because that's a big part of life.
Authentically too. Like, this is something that Bob would have loved. And that's so important in an end of life celebration, that people feel like they've properly honored their loved one. So again, I just want to say you've done such a good job, and I'm so proud of you. And
thank you very much. Thank you. And the last part of what we're trying to do for Bob is to have a permanent memorial for him in Lexington. And we've been looking at some of the fabulous murals. We saw the mural of Sweet Evening Breeze last night when we were walking around, which is so great. And we're just trying to come up with a way to memorialize Bob in Lexington, so that other people can visit with him, people can get to know him through whatever way we're
introduced to him.
Yeah, through whatever way we're able to commemorate with him. So if anybody has any wonderful ideas or access to,
and we really need someone in Lexington.
Yeah, we need boots on the ground for that.
It's hard to do when Casey's in Nashville, I'm in Paducah. We'd love to find somebody that would help us take this next step,
so that he could have a permanent presence.
Be it whatever, a bench or just something.
No, it's a mural. It's a giant mural. I can't. It's a huge mural. It's the biggest mural.
Who's in charge of the murals? Please get in touch with us.
We're going to work on that. Work on that. That's a great idea. I can't think of anything more perfect for Bob Andrews than really
bigger than life.
Huge mural.
Love that.
Because he's bigger than life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see what we've still got some time for. I want to mention, we haven't really we talked some about Bob and cooking, but not necessarily, like, some things seem so far in the past. It's true for anybody, but think about Mia's, and Bob was a cook at Mia's. Teresa Toom, I'm gonna call out Teresa, because I realized at a certain point that my dear friend Teresa had an in with Bob Andrews, and he would just fix her food. Like, she wouldn't order. He would just make what she liked. And I was like, you can do that? That's a thing? It never was for me and Bob, but it was for her and Bob. Am I wrong?
No, you're not. He took care of me so well. And and I was mentioning earlier, whenever I'd have guest artists in, Jill Parker, for instance, who's coming back in a couple of weeks. He loved Jill and all of our guest artists, and he would, if I had guests in, he would say, all right, bring them to Mia's. I'm going to make a special brunch specifically for you guys. And he, he needed no instructions or anything. He just would create just this buffet of amazing food, and he would feed all the dancers and just, make everyone feel just wonderful. And that, somebody visiting from San Francisco was treated to this like amazing community in Lexington, and just, be like, wow, you live in such a great community, but he'd do that stuff all the time. I just think about Helios, that I remember one Christmas I didn't go home, and the downstairs bar was open and they were making tapas, and that was like one of my favorite Christmas times, just being there, hanging out with everyone that works there, and just enjoying cocktails and tapas, and just having a great holiday, when you would have imagined that you were all alone on the holiday. But
it's funny, a couple of my favorite Christmases were just Bob and I.
Yeah.
And tiramisu pancakes. It's like,
yes.
conversation with someone the other day, and they're like, tiramisu pancakes. I'm like, oh my God.
Yep.
They were fabulous.
Amazing.
I know. So many people have reminisced about Bob's cooking. I got a text from a friend in Nashville right after we found out that Bob had died. And the first thing that he talked about was cooking with Bob and the shepherd's pie that Bob used to make and how he would pipe the mashed potatoes. I mean, this was a detailed text about this particular dish that had stuck with him all this time. And just his feeling about how Bob had helped nurture him as a cook. And yeah, just that level of creativity, that improvisational creativity that he had with food. And even at the end, Bob was in a nursing home at the end, and he was having, he died from COVID. I don't know if everyone knows that, but he had been on a ventilator for many months, and then he was in a nursing home. And so he was having bland, terrible institutional food. And he was just fantasizing recipes the whole time. And I would go and visit him, and he would talk about, Casey, I'm thinking of this recipe. And it's like, such and I'm not a food person at all. Like, I'm taste bud challenged, but he would just go on and on about these recipes that he was making in his mind as he was, sort of trapped in this place. And it's just still as creative and engaged and as active as ever.
Yeah. In his last days, he has plans to help them in the kitchen. Yeah, that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah. And he would have.
He would have.
Sure. Yeah. I think I could totally see him going in there and rummaging through the cabinets and reinventing everything. Oh, you could make this. You could make this.
Buddy, if he worked for you in your kitchen and you were employing him, you better have what you were supposed to have. You couldn't slack. Because he would be so mad if you did not have the buns or or the fries or whatever. He would just get so angry that an owner could not be responsible to get what he needed to do his job. And rightfully so.
Yeah, I went to Kroger's with Bob several times. He'd come to my house and cook for a party. But I take him to Kroger's and he would have a list. And he would go through and with a pen, he would check off all the things on his list. And he never had recipes, but he had a list. And then he'd come over to my house, and in my tiny, tiny kitchen, he'd create this huge smorgasbord.
Same here.
Amazing.
Same here. Amazing.
I want to thank you all so much for joining us. And there's more of this to come later tonight for those who are interested.
Please join us.
The details again for that, Curtis and Casey. You want to tell us
it's at the Lyric Theater in the community room. Hopefully it'll be on the marquee. And it's from 6:30 till 9:30. And it's just going to be a combo of chatting and dancing and food and whatever.
It's a little bit of a potluck,
We're
isn't
excited about Mecca. Apparently she has something special that she's done for us and in his memory. And we're real excited.
Yeah. So if anybody would like to celebrate Bob's life and reminisce or
see old friends
or even learn more about Bob, we would love to.
Right. I was going to say, if you're listening and you didn't know Bob Andrews and you're just curious for more, I'd say you're totally welcome.
He could down some Mountain Dew. So our signature drink is a Mountain Dew punch.
Yeah.
Mountain Dew sherbet punch.
You'll be awake.
Whoa.
You'll be awake.
Oh my God.
Since it's a prom.
Right.
We have a photo op area. It's going to be fun.
Oh, right. It is a prom. Now, this is like, does anybody want to talk about why it's a prom?
It just seemed
so
the right
Bob.
thing. I don't know. It just worked.
Yeah. It came to Curtis, the potluck prom. I guess the PP. And Bob's the prom king.
Yep. He's the king.
Thank you all so much. Casey Kerrigan and Curtis Grace, Lauren Hunter Smith, Pat Gerhart, Teresa Toom, Ben Salee,
Carla
Brown.
Thank you, Mick
Did anybody
Jeffries.
else split? Of course. I'm happy to do so and happy to share such an incredibly, just such a deep trove of memories. It really is incredible. I mean, it's kind of awed me even just during this, really, just the how deep the trove of memories is where Bob is concerned. He touched so many people. Yeah.
He did.
Thanks again to all of you all for coming and being on the show to celebrate Bob Andrews and for doing what you're doing tonight. And we're going to check into that mural situation.
Yes,
so,
please.
We're going to take a tiny break here, and we're going to come back and we're going to visit with Ben Salee. I'm very happy about that. Ben is performing at Big Ears, which kicks off today in Knoxville, Tennessee, and we're going to come back and talk about music and stuff, and friends and love and everything. So this is Trivial Thursdays. First, we're going to play some Bear Medicine from their Dog Is Love album. This is Glitter and Shine.
Bye, Mick.
Woke up in the morning feeling far away.
Okay, that's us.
I was laying there thinking about the judgment day. That I've been around long enough to know. Now there ain't nobody gonna save my soul. Now there ain't nobody gonna save my soul. So I follow the light of the morning star. Said to get to where you're going, gotta lose it all. Now I ride so high that I ride so low. Gonna get to where I'm going, but the wheel is slow. Gonna get to where I'm going, but the wheel turns slow. So when the curtains are drawn and the last note's sung, I'll be slipping out the back under the midnight sun. And then there's nothing left to do and nothing to say. Only thing that's worth the lasting are the songs we play. Only thing that's worth the lasting are the songs we play.
This portion of WRFL's programming is made possible in part by Broomwagon Coffee and Bikes. Broomwagon is a full-service bike shop and also offers mobile service, e-bikes, and educational classes on bicycles. Broomwagon is located at the corner of Loudon and North Limestone. More info can be found at broomwagonbikes.com. WRFL thanks Broomwagon for supporting college radio.
This is Major Joe Monroe with UK Police. You're listening to WRFL 88.1 in Lexington, Kentucky.
Yes, indeed. I I love that idea. I haven't heard it in a long time. Joe Monroe, the brother of Theo Monroe, who was instrumental in the founding of WRFL. So it's nice to have a little ID from him. This is Trivial Thursdays on WRFL. I am your host, Mick Jeffries. Happy to be with you here on this beautiful Thursday outside, and happy to have celebrated some of the life of Bob Andrews with some friends who are putting on an event tonight at the Lyric Theater at 7:30. If you're interested, let's see. So. It's about 25 after 11. Where'd the time go? I need to get Ben Salih back in here. Let's see. And I was happy to get to add Ben. I thought it was just so, fortuitous that you have your own memories and relationship with Bob Andrews.
Well, I mean,
and Curtis.
It's such a sign that, how many lives one person can touch, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, Bob just being open to saying hello to people when they walked in the store or when they were at an event or gathered around food. There's people, for those listening, like, you're touching a lot of lives just by living and being open to it.
As you have as well, sir, Ben Salih here, Kentucky musician, cellist, songwriter, composer, performer, storyteller. I love your stories. I love when you tell stories during your concerts. I never can tell whether it's something you do such a good job of just kind of blending it. And I can't figure out whether it was just spontaneous at the moment or whether you had it all kind of worked out. But you have an amazing way of blending your music and stories and observations together.
Well, thanks.
Yeah. And I'm happy to see you. I know that this hasn't. We ought to just get right into things. I know things went a little bit sideways, more than a little bit sideways. Recently for you, one of your most beloved collaborators has been lost, and I'm really sorry about that. My condolences.
Well, thanks for saying so. Yeah, Jordan Ellis, longtime collaborator, friend, creative, constant collaborator. Ended his life at the end of February, and it was a real shock. But like many people, he was struggling with depression that had set in during the pandemic, and everybody in his life was certainly trying to help him, and maybe we didn't get the timing right. Maybe there's nothing to be done, but I've been spending a lot of time ruminating and thinking about all the great music that we made together, and thinking about just how many lives that he touched, both as a musician, as a father, as a community leader, as an audio engineer, as an educator. Just really cool dude. And he had so much good music left yet to make. And it's like I kind of mentioned when we were talking about Bob. This is me just learning about Bob too. So this spring has been, in that Shakespearean way, beware the Ides of March, right? Like, it's been a tough one. Just in the last 3 weeks, I've had 3 good friends, Jordan, Sean Bailey, who was a kind of a creative keystone in Louisville's music community and was the guy who consigned my very first record at Ear Ecstasy all those years ago, passed away. And then I had a very close friend pass away just this past weekend. So it's been a time of lots of goodbyes, and realizing just like how little space, how little oxygen we've given for that conversation in the public sphere. We've all moved on, even though everyone has experienced so much trauma and grief over the course of the pandemic. And then you add on top of there the tech revolution that's happening with AI and the biomedical revolution that's happening. It's just like, wow, what crazy times. How does one keep up? Can one keep up? Should one keep up as a human? Lot to think about, lot to consider. So trying to process that through music and time with family and friends.
Yeah, it seems like things are just piling on in some ways. Like, I know for me, I felt like a lot of people probably, that once we got sort of past the pandemic, and got back to quote unquote normal, that everything would sort of level out and it would be smooth sailing, but life goes on, loss goes on. I've had loss. Americans, I don't know if it's just Americans, but we don't really do grief all that well.
No.
I feel like there's a lot of people that feel like it's optional. I know that I probably have thought that before too, but it's not. It's not really optional. Which is one of the reasons I talked to you about whether or not you wanted to be on the show, because it's just so fresh, kind of. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and it's ambiguous, right? Loss it's ambiguous. Like whether that's a long-time relationship or leaving a job or losing a close friend. There is no linear process to grieving or loss. It just is something that is part of you. And, for some people that can feel very overwhelming. For me, that's very freeing, because I'm like, well, shoot, I don't have to do this on anybody's timeline or expectation, and being able to come talk about and certainly celebrate Jordan has been really healing.
And that's, I don't know, as I've gotten older, I feel like I've learned that when I was younger, just the prospect of sort of going to some sort of death ritual, a funeral, whatever, was just like, I was far too self-centered, and also it just felt really awkward. As I've gotten older, I feel like those rituals are so important. They're just so important to have opportunities to kind of celebrate people, honestly, who have gone on, to celebrate all the ways and articulate as many of the ways as possible that they were loved.
Yep.
And for you, one of those forms can take music, I suppose, which is probably helpful in some ways, perhaps.
Yeah, no, of course, music and just the arts in general are a tremendous tool for helping feel more connected to your body, your source, your community. They're great tools, and often where medicine, the traditional healthcare ends, is where the arts pick up. And while it's not measured as often, or maybe even as possible to measure, it does create a tremendous amount of openness, right? Like you're opening yourself to emotion, yours and others, and being that vulnerability that comes with playing an instrument or painting or working with words, or cooking, right? All these things, they open you up, and that's really, really healthy. So I'd encourage anybody out there to pick up a craft or a skill, because it's so good, of course, for your relationship to your own self, but it's also really, really good for some of your physical, attributes, your coordination, and your all of your neuro pathways to be able to stay healthy and clean and active. It's good stuff.
Just keep it moving, keep stuff moving in there. Gardening. You didn't mention gardening.
I didn't mention gardening, but gardening's
I hear gardening's coming back around.
Well, it being spring and all. Yeah, absolutely. But I've got my cello here, and I think we've had a lot
surprising no one.
A lot of good. I know my cello's always here. One of the songs, all music. As I write a song, people often ask me, like, do you get bored or tired of playing the same songs? And I say no, because every time I play it, it's different, and every time I perform it, and wherever I perform it, it grabs a new meaning, right?
Absolutely.
Songs that I've written 10 years ago about whatever topic it was certainly they're not about that topic anymore. They're about all the performances and stories that people have shared with me about that song, the weddings I've played it at, the funerals I've played it at, the mountaintops that I rode my bicycle to play it at. You roll it down the hill of life, and it accumulates new and different meaning. And certainly one of the songs that has now profoundly shifted its meaning is a song of mine called Hurting, that I wrote for a 2011 record called Inclusions. And this was the first record that Jordan Ellis and I really kind of sat down and workshopped together as a duo. and then expanded for the recording of the project. And you know, in thinking of the lyrics and the feel of the song, he had this incredible, like, super punchy, like, the drum part was this sort of strut that felt aggressive but also had some grace to it at the same time. And it's just iconic Jordan drumming, and everything's kind of shifted about the meaning of the song. So I'm gonna adjust and tighten this mic stand, lock it down, and I'll play it for you. This is a tune of mine called Hurting. Can you hear the cello okay? Someone's taken the boy from your face, traded your eyes for those that have seen. The shade of your innocence consumed in heat. You put your hands in your pockets, buried as deep as they will go. You're gonna find a reason you won't be at the show, and I can see the patterns. I can feel the repetition. Oh, you're hurting. Something's perched there on the steeple. You let your eyes follow it away. Kick the rocks down the road. There's no use to pray, 'cause some days you won't remember, but most days you can't forget how they pulled you from the water, separated from the rest. Who makes these rules? Who's keeping tabs? You're looking for answers where there's none to be had, and I can see the patterns. I can feel the repetition. Oh, you're hurting. Oh, you're hurting. Oh, and it's gonna be alright, alright. Yes, and it's gonna be it's gonna be alright. Listen, yes, it's gonna be alright. Whoa, it's gonna be alright. 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 Someone's taken the boy from your face, traded your eyes for those that have seen.
That's Ben Sali here on WRFL's Trivia Thursdays. Ben, that was amazing.
Well,
I collected myself.
I want that mantra. It's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right. I mean, for those listening, like, everything changes. You know, everything is always moving, and the world is just so dynamic. It's gonna be all right.
Yeah.
It's gonna be all right.
It is always changing, and I feel like I do feel like we're kind of living at a time where there are people, there are forces at work who are trying to sort of make things not change. But it's not going to work. I mean, like in the big picture, things keep changing. They do.
Of
no
course
matter how
they're
much you
not.
want
I mean, one of those forces is contributing to, legislation that is harmful and hateful. The passing of the bill yesterday, Bill 150, the kind of like anti-trans, don't say gay. I mean, it's just I understand that there's a lot of fear of the unknowns and the lack of conformity that feels very unstable to people who have grown up with certain cultural values, ideas, constraints, and even me, it's like a lot of the conversations made me like reflect on like who I was in middle school and how many things I kind of shaved off and corners I smoothed out to be able to kind of fit in a box. And that's me as an artist, like all of us are participating this in a cultural way. And I know, I don't just hope, I know that will open up as everyone's life is touched by these incredibly brave youth and all the people that have lived their lives in either non-binary spaces or non-conforming spaces or have transitioned. Like, they're going to understand that that's coming from a place of identity and love, and that everyone is dealing with their identity and everyone is looking for acceptance and love, right? And like, you can't legislate that into a binary choice. You just can't. And we will come to understand that. Sadly, Kentucky is running, frankly, legislatively at least, the other direction. And our communities will come together and say, hey, I know you're scared, but this is human. This is natural. This is something that we will all come to understand, and things that as our kids roam around, they're not worried about girls and boys. Like, I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old right now. They are the last thing they're worrying about that. They are spending way more time being sharks, wolves, lizards. The amount of pretending and the flexibility and room for them to experiment and grow is amazing. And I think when we really like search our inner like self, we want to be back in that space where we had room to play and be playful. So we'll get there. It's just, there's just so much harm that will happen along the way. And that brings me great sorrow.
Yeah, me too. When we were talking about Bob earlier and you were joining us, he struck me, and the stories that were told struck me as a sort of, just the inclusiveness balm, basically, of that man's life. Also heard you say something that I think is a great thing to hear, and it's a hard thing to hear though, and it has to do with empathy, and kind of empathy for people who are, afraid and turning to sort of irrational kind of decisions. I don't mean to oversimplify things, but like, when you look at people who seem to be building these barriers, is it possible to find some empathy in your heart for the fear that they may be experiencing over something that they feel like they don't have any control over, which is something that can unite us. That kind of fear, I feel like.
Absolutely. And it's not something you must. I mean, the Dalai Lama talks about this all the time because they're teaching us, right? All of these folks are teachers, and we're teachers for them, right? And, if you take that sort of green lens approach, then there's a lot of growth that can happen, both internally for me, but also for the people that I dialogue with. And so that's a hard, it's a very difficult practice that I'm still nurturing in myself. But you gotta get through especially if we're talking about, non-gender conforming, you can't then conform to some societal idea of like opposition either, right? Like, we have to stay in this place of of love. You know, you got to stay there, and it's hard. I get it, people. It's hard.
Oh yeah, it is.
For those of you all shaking your head out at me out there, I 100% get it. But you know, when the Dalai Lama talks about Chairman Mao being his greatest teacher, like, all right. I mean, we're not all going to get to that spiritual place, but we can practice that in our lives.
Yeah.
So yeah, and with that in mind, maybe some more music. I mean,
that would be great.
people love
Ben
music.
Ali is here, and we're talking about, I don't know, life, love, loss, music, and Ben is sounding fantastic, by the way. Hey, you might want to turn down the gain a little bit.
On which one? On both?
Maybe on both a little bit. You sound pretty great, but when you start kicking it with four on the floor, it might just getting just a tiny bit overdriven. But you
Is
sound
this okay?
fantastic. Yep.
All right. All right, little tech talk there. What would be good in this moment? What would be good? Radio waves tuning your cello. Here's a good one. It's called A Whole Lot to Give. It's got some good spirit, and it's also got a little mantra for you there in the chorus, which is, you got a whole lot to give. Just pace yourself. Oh yes, feel the friction in your mind. Consider this opportunity to move against the tides. Oh, such thoughtful maps. Oh yes, of an ever-changing coast, drawing lines where they never were, just to see if they might belong. Oh, but you got a whole lot to give, yes. You got a whole lot to give. Ooh, you got a whole lot to give. Oh, 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 yes, you got a whole lot to give. Just quit chasing your tail. You're tracking mud all over the place. Lord, don't you remember the voice you used when you spoke of precious things? Oh, but you got a whole lot to give. Yes, you got a whole lot to give, oh child. You got a whole lot to give. Oh, 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 yes, you got a whole lot to give.
Oh, Ben Salih, live on WRFL's Trivia Thursdays with one of my favorite songs, which I did not request. I'd just like to be very clear.
Oh, cool. That's great. I'm glad. It's it's not always the most popular one on the old Spotify's and stuff, but I love playing it because it's got that good, strong message.
That's let's see, that's from Half Made Man.
Yep.
And now's is probably as good a time as any to congratulate you and celebrate the fact that you are performing at Big Ears this weekend at the 10th anniversary Big Ears.
Thank you. I'm really excited about it. I was added last minute, and I'm just so grateful because it's one of the bucket list festivals for me. It's beautifully curated. It's got a great culture around it.
I love it so much. I can't wait.
Incredible artists playing this year, so very, very excited to be a part of it.
So many, and it's such a. As someone was, we were talking to Rachel Grimes last week, and it's who's also performing, by the way, and with Carolyn Shaw and this really like kind of multifaceted orchestral piece that they're doing called the Blue Room, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
But we were talking about how I've meant to go to Big Ears for many years. I finally went last year, and I was like, oh my God, this is my happy place. I'm not a festival guy, really. Big Ears in the arts district of Knoxville happens there's like a church here and an auditorium here, a knock dirt club over here, so forth and so on. And it's just all these shows, and you just kind of wander around, even get your exercise.
Ah, perfect. Yeah.
So I'm not sure where you're playing, but congratulations on joining the Big Ears family.
I'll be playing at St. John's Cathedral on
my favorite venue.
Oh, good to hear. I'll be playing on Sunday evening at 6:30, and hopefully, I'm thinking in the context of the festival, it'll be part meditation and kind of coming down off of a lot of amazing music, and then also celebration too.
I think the people will really, really like that, Dan. That the sites definitely take on a different kind of. Some of them are sort of more raucous and happening, and then, but St. John's is where I saw some of the most just stunning and unforgettable kind of contemplative music performed. Just sitting there in that church,
and I'm hoping it's a springboard back towards getting it back out there as a performer. I kind of rotated off the road at the end of 2016, 2017. I was a little burnt out from 20 years of touring a bunch, starting my senior year of high school at Lafayette and then, continuing on through there. My wife and I wanted to grow the family. So we had 2 more kids, and I've deepened my roots here in Louisville, kind of connecting with folks and doing lots of community work, which has all been great. I've grown a lot, both as a human and as a musician. And, I also went through a pretty big, long COVID battle that was, in hindsight, very educational. Having your health just taken from you so quickly is an event, like many people that have these sort of like life-changing events. It's like, oh, well, what do I really want out of this, and how do I get it? So it kind of helped with the why and the intention. And after about 1.5 years, I got over the symptoms through just kind of lifestyle changes that included diet and breathing and just really fundamental stuff. In a way, it's been a process of subtraction, like taking away some of the things that I added as an adult, right? Like the super rich foods, the alcohol, the not sleeping, let's take some of those things away and see what happens. And it's been a really, educational, inspirational journey. So feeling energized, feeling motivated and creative towards making a new record and getting it out there to you all and doing some touring around it.
Have you, as far as the Big Ear show, have you altered what you thought about you did say that you were a pretty recent ask, but I was wondering if the loss of Jordan had changed the tenor or what it was that you were thinking about doing at Big Ears.
Well, this Big Ears is a festival that both Jordan and I had dreamed about performing at as a duo. And so it'll be both my first public performance since Jordan's passing, and something that was kind of a brotherly dream for both of us. So it'll be emotional. You know, I'm working on the set list and thinking about what would be most appropriate. Thinking about how to have Jordan's presence on stage in some way, shape, or another, whether that's a little altar or, you know, an empty drum kit. I'm not sure. I think that it could be enough just to have a chair, you know, just to have a chair
Right.
there for him. But it does alter things a little bit, because I thought about, you know, bringing in another percussionist to play with, and it just wasn't, didn't feel quite right yet. So I'll be playing solo and in the church environment, just singing my little heart out.
I think you're gonna peel some skulls back. I'm
Did we
very
lose the
excited
video?
for that. Maybe.
If
it comes back, that's great. Let's see. So yeah, I think that I'm hoping and thinking that people will be delighted. And again, congratulations on getting added to the coolest little festival there is. It's just right down the road, you know, just a couple hours down the road in Knoxville.
Baby.
Last time I was there, I came up with a new slogan for Knoxville that I don't know if they're going to take me up on it or not, but my slogan for Knoxville is Knoxville. Who knew?
I think they would,
because the Arts District is it's wonderful. So
yeah,
Ben, I'm so happy to have you here to visit and to have you as just a wonderful Kentucky musician and so forth and so on. And my heart goes out to you and your loved ones where Jordan is concerned and where your other friends are concerned. And you give me the sort of inspiration to keep kind of chugging along, you know, no matter what comes down the pike, basically, because that's kind of what we do, right?
Yeah, that's the best we can do is just keep showing up for each other, for ourselves, and go forward. So you want to close out with a song? I'm actually getting ready to get in the car and drive to Lexington for an interview with Bullhorn Media. So we can do one more song.
Let's
for
give
those
it a try.
listening.
I'm not sure where the video went. Maybe it'll come back.
Well, I'm not sure either. I'm looking at my camera here, and everything is still the same.
I got to tell you, you've got spectacular stereo separation. Like I've got little earbuds in, and you're moving around my office.
Oh, so sorry about that. I'm sure.
No, it's great. It's amazing. Okay, take it away.
All right, we'll play one more and send folks off. Thanks for listening, everybody. Hometown Lexington, I miss you all, and I hope to get to see you with a show soon. We had a great show at the Burl about a month ago, so I'll be back soon.
And thanks to Ben Sully. Thanks for being on the show. Thanks to all of Bob Andrews' friends, and thank you for tuning in. And if we, so we're gonna we'll send you out with Ben here, and after that we'll just kind of be on our merry way. How about that, Ben? You may need to click your camera on again. I turned it off just to see if it would help, and if you've got an extra hand to do that, and then I'll let you take it away.
Yeah.
This has been Sully.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
I'm trying. I don't know if the camera's working.
It's okay.
Sorry about that. It'll just have to be
Sounds
audio
fantastic.
for now. Imagine
this
the
is
show
radio.
being
This
played.
is radio.
This is radio. Sometimes I feel like an arrow fighting something somewhere long ago. Whether it moved or I missed where I'm bound, I don't yet know. But if you see me coming, oh, I'll probably pass you by on my way to something somewhere sometime. Oh, yes. Sometimes I find myself reeling, listing and rolling in a plastic sea. Yes, there's signs and signals bidding for attention from me. So turn on your city, Oh, and I will turn on mine, and we'll hum and glow like something somewhere sometime. Oh, and if I've wounded you, I'm sorry, I had good intentions. And if I've wounded you, I'm sorry, Lord. Oh, 'cause it happens all the time. Oh, yes. You remind me of a reason had by someone so many years ago to send words through wires and build highways from coast to coast. But your words fell short on your road, have worn me time on our way to something, somewhere, sometime. Oh, and if I've wounded you, I'm sorry, I had good intentions. And if I wounded you, I'm sorry, Lord. Oh, 'cause it happens all the time. Sometimes I feel like an arrow fired at something somewhere long ago.
Thank you so much. That is Ben Sali performing on WRFL's Trivial Thursdays. Closing out our show today, you can again catch Ben at the 2023 Big Ears Festival in Knoxville, which kicks off today. Ben is performing on Sunday at 6:30 at St. John's Cathedral.
Thanks for having me on, Mick. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Same to you, brother, and I look forward to talking to you. I'll see you at Big Ears.
All right. Take care.
All right, bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Trivial Thursdays on WRFL Lexington, and thank you so much for tuning in to the show. Thanks to our friends who came to celebrate the life of Bob Andrews. That was Casey Kerrigan and Curtis Grace, as well as Lauren Hunter Smith, Teresa Toome, Pat Gerhardt of Third Street Stuff, and who else am I forgetting? Carla Brown. And lots of others. If you're interested in continuing, or if you'd like to hear more about the inimitable Bob Andrews, tonight at 7:30 at the Lyric Theater, there's an event to celebrate his life, and you can check that out. Again, thanks to Ben Sali, the great Ben Sali, cellist, composer, singer, storyteller, truth teller, and just happy to have Ben on the show. So thank you all for tuning in. We will catch you next time. Have a wonderful day. This has been Trivial Thursdays on WRFL, and we're looking for something to send you out with here. And that little something is going to be, he said, stalling. Listen to me stall. So how about small batch? Because we've been talking about home, and we've been talking about true loves. And so we'll say bye to you with small batches, true loves, here on Trivial Thursdays on WRFL. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great day.
Night we played that show up in the old ballroom. A rare night for you. Whiskey by your home. All those faces, one bright light on your home. Same expert smile and your jokes with the Camptown lady. You told me you were the drug and that you'd last forever. Let's go out the back, put us back together. Where I go every time, the only reason I leave my bed. Bells rang out on your birthday, were ringing just as clear in my head. Can we go home? Oh, can we go home? Bird that marries the fish, where they are supposed to be living, to take me away from this, the best thing you could have given.